Well, welcome to the 700 Club. Despite ongoing negotiations, the main question in Washington is when will the U.S. strike Iran? The U.S. military leadership has been briefing President Trump on his options.
Meanwhile, the United States Embassy in Israel is advising staff to leave now if they want to go, as the risk of war continues to grow. Joshua Swanson brings us the story from Jerusalem.
The threat of war with Iran still looms, despite another round of peace negotiations in Geneva this week. While both Washington and Tehran signaled a willingness to keep talking, no agreement was reached. U.S. and Iranian officials agreed to continue discussions next week. Iran's Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi claimed progress was made toward a possible resolution.
I can say that we made good progress after several hours of intensive negotiations. We have started serious discussions about the elements of a deal, both in the field of nuclear issues and the removal of sanctions.
Yet conflicting reports suggest the sides remain far apart. U.S. envoy Steve Witkoff and Jared Kushner demanded that Tehran dismantle all nuclear sites and turn over enriched uranium. In Washington, the U.S. Central Command chief reportedly briefed President Trump on potential strike options as the United States continues building up a massive force in the region. With the USS Gerald Ford aircraft carrier approaching the coast of Haifa, Politico reports some U.S. senior advisors are urging the president to allow Israel to strike first. One person familiar with the discussion said there's thinking in and around the administration that the politics are a lot better if the Israelis go first and alone, and the Iranians retaliate. As questions grow over whether diplomacy can succeed, the focus in Washington appears to be shifting from if to when and how a potential strike could occur. Here in Israel, the U.S. Embassy has now authorized the departure of non-essential personnel because of security risks. Also in Jerusalem, Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi delivered a historic address to the Knesset.
India stands with Israel firmly, with full conviction in this moment and beyond.
Modi also emphasized the shared heritage of two ancient civilizations and deepening strategic ties between the democracies. On Israel's northern border, the IDF struck 8 Hezbollah military compounds. The sites reportedly stored firearms and rockets and were used by the Radwan force for training in violation of the ceasefire. And the Jerusalem Post reports the Palestinian Authority in 2025 transferred $500 million shekels under its Pay for Slay program. Funds were distributed to families of terrorists, and critics charge Western countries with indirectly subsidizing this program since the PA can divert funds from its general budget. Joshua Swanson, CBN News, Jerusalem.
It ought to be shocking to every European government, the UN, the United States, our State Department, that the Palestinian Authority continues the pay-to-slay program. And they're doing it with money that they don't raise themselves, money that is donated to them, supposedly for security and for their own police force. In order to tamp down this kind of activity, they actually reward it and reward it handsomely. We're in a very difficult time in America. I think it's time for us to all focus. Are we going to back up what we said? We said if they go against their protesters, we're going to be coming in. Well, the evidence is clear. They went against the protesters. They shot their own civilians. They put them in jail. They are all facing execution. We cannot back down now and still maintain credibility in the region. In other news, the Islamic call to prayer is blasting from mosques. Guess where? New York City during the month of Ramadan. And New Yorkers are flooding social media with complaints. John Jessup has that story and more from our CBN News Bureau in Washington. John?
Thanks, Gordon. Muslims defend the broadcast as their First Amendment right to religious freedom and cultural identity. But a former Muslim tells CBN's Gary Lane he believes this is primarily a tool for asserting political dominance rather than fulfilling religious devotion.
Good morning. This is your wake-up call. Ready or not, it's time to start the day. This is not Cairo, Mecca, or Medina. It's New York City. And the Adhan, or Muslim call to prayer, is ringing out in the Big Apple, especially during Ramadan, which began on February 17th. Many New Yorkers are speaking out against these amplified call to prayer broadcasts. Some Americans see the call to prayer as a disturbance, while Muslims insist it's their constitutional right to express their faith freely. It's a delicate balance between community rights and America's religious liberty.
It has nothing to do with freedom of religion. It is projecting dominance.
Former Muslim turned Christian Danny Bermawi is the author of Islam, Israel, and the West. He says the call to prayer was more important in the early days of Islam. Back then, with no cell phones or alarms to wake people up, it helped bring them to the mosque to pray. In 2026, he believes it's no longer needed.
Many people are arguing that there is no need for the call to prayer to be broadcasted and bothering everyone because we have alarms. Muslims don't need it, but political Islam needs it.
Where should New Yorkers draw the line then? How do we balance the religious rights of minorities with the need for peace and quiet in our communities?
So as long as Islam is categorized as a religion, exclusively a religion, then there's nothing you can do.
Bermawi says the first move would be for New Yorkers to try to redefine Islam. He believes these broadcasts from mosques should be compared to if communists broadcast political messages through loudspeakers, which are not allowed in New York City neighborhoods. Bermawi also argues Islam is not really a religion, but a political ideology with a religious side.
When you go into your room, you close your door, and you pray to Allah, that is a religion. That is spiritual practice that belongs to the religion. But when you broadcast the call to prayer so that Muslims and non-Muslims will be disturbed by it, that has nothing to do with religion. That is a political signal. That is a declaration that we exist politically and we are taking over the public space.
Many are asking what can be done to ensure most New Yorkers can live their lives in peace without being disturbed by the Muslim call to prayer. Bermawi says the answer will not come from their new mayor, who is both a Muslim and a declared democratic socialist.
His allegiance to Islam comes first. It's at the top of the list of what gives you identity. So he will keep pushing for normalization of Islam in the public square in New York in 1,000 different ways.
Gary Lane, CBN News.
Thank you, Gary. Christian believers came together for a night of intercession for college students. Thursday's National Collegiate Day of Prayer was live streamed from Liberty University, with students worshiping God and hearing biblical messages.
I want to take a quick moment of silence if God is rooting things out of your heart. Pray to Him specifically. Talk to Jesus alone right now and ask for repentance, ask for His forgiveness.
The event is part of a spiritual awakening as hunger for Jesus is rising on college campuses across the country and as students search for answers. The group's leaders invited believers in every nation to join them in covering 250 million college students worldwide in prayer. You can watch a recording of the event on CBNnews.com. Well, Tuesday marked the 4th anniversary of Russia's invasion of Ukraine, and many analysts say it amounts to a major embarrassment for President Vladimir Putin. It's a war that was expected to be over in days, but now has lasted longer than the Soviet Union's fight against Nazi Germany, and Russia is no closer to victory. CBN's Dale Hurd has that story.
The 2022 invasion of Ukraine was supposed to be what Russians call a small victorious war. 4 years later, Russia has suffered the highest casualty rate of any major power in any war since World War II. An estimated 1.2 million dead and wounded, twice the casualty rate of Ukraine. The once vaunted Russian army has performed dismally, sending wave after wave of men to their deaths with little to show for the huge price paid in blood. Some have joked that a snail could cross more territory in 4 years than the Russian army has. While Russia has made recent gains, these maps show it holds less territory than the first weeks of the war. Strategists used to question how long Ukraine could hold on against the much larger and more sophisticated Russian military. Now some are asking how long Russia can hold on. Ukraine says it killed 35,000 Russian troops in December alone. Geopolitical analyst Paul Warburg.
Russian soldiers are now becoming casualties, actually dying at a faster rate than Russia can recruit them. And so if that trend continues, which so far it has for a couple of months, that is a tipping point in the war, because it means that from this point forward, the Russian military will shrink.
The Russian economy, after booming for a short time from war production, is now stagnating, facing high inflation and interest rates.
The economy is in shambles. The ruble is fading, and we can tell that because Russia is having to do the number one thing they don't want to do, which is lower recruitment bonuses for their soldiers, which essentially is, kind of proof that they're running out of money.
While polling still indicates support for the war among the Russian public, the Kremlin just banned Western social media apps in what a well-known Russian war blogger termed preemptive riot control. Maxim Kalashnikov also said the war had become a crisis of Russian statehood. A perfect storm is forming during a stupidly drawn-out war. Disaster is approaching.
And that's precisely why right now it's the right time while his economy is very fragile, to put more pressure on him.
Dr. Ivana Strodner says Vladimir Putin remains committed to the long game, which he still believes he can win.
For Putin, this war is a protracted war, and he believes that he can win in the long run by actually outlasting the West.
Ukrainian Ambassador Olga Stefanishina tells CBN News Ukraine is ready to make peace, but there can be no peace until Russia stops attacking it.
Ukraine cannot stop defending itself. It's like giving up your life. It's as simple. But Ukraine wants a peace. And of course, we understand that if only Russian troops would leave Ukraine, the war will be over. But if Ukrainians will stop fighting, Ukraine will be over.
Vladimir Putin's small victorious war was a major military miscalculation that is now eating away at the Russian economy and military morale. And it no longer looks as if time is on Vladimir Putin's side. Dale Hurd, CBN News.
Thank you, Dale. Well, CBN's Operation Blessing has been providing humanitarian relief in Ukraine since the start of the war. Operation Blessing has been repairing devastated homes and building new ones for those in need. This elderly woman's home was destroyed by a Russian missile strike. She was inside when it hit and miraculously survived. Operation Blessing stepped in and built her a new home, so she now has a secure place and a dignified home to live in. It is another example, Gordon, of Operation Blessing and how it's helping Ukrainian families who've lost everything since the war.
Well, let's pray that the Russian people wake up to the horror that they've inflicted on the Ukrainian people. Hopefully that message can break through and we can find a peaceful end to this war. But initially, our efforts for Operation Blessing in Ukraine were all funded from our disaster relief program. 4 years in, we're funding it out of our general fund. And if you want to give so that the people of Ukraine can know that we stand with them and in the middle of this horror, we want to help them rebuild. We want them to have a hope. We want them to have a future, that we stand on their side of this. All you have to do is call us and say, I want to give to Operation Blessing. Numbers on your screen, 1-800-700-7000. You can also write to us at CBN Center, Virginia Beach, Virginia, 23463. Just put Operation Blessing on that check, and your gift will go into the general fund, which will help fund our efforts into Ukraine. You can also go to CBN.com. There's a place there where you can designate your gift. Either way, do it now. 1-800-700-7000.